on there. Good evening, everybody. It is March 14th, Wednesday at 5:15, and we are at the Infrastructure and Facilities Committee of City Wausau meeting. Good evening, everybody, and we will start with number one is approval of the minutes of the March 14th meeting. Is there any additions, any or corrections anybody would like to make to those? And if not, I will take a motion to accept those.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Alder Henke. Is there a second? Yeah, you lost your boot. Second by Alder Rasmussen. There's been a motion made and a second, a motion made by Alder Henke and a second made by Alder Rasmussen for approval of the March 14th meeting minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And none opposed, that motion passes. Number two, item number two, discussion and possible action on parking restrictions on Troy Street between Maple Road and Evergreen Road. And do you have that one, TJ? Or, I mean,
Yes, this is
Adam.
me. So how this came about is a resident on the west side of, if you look on your map on Troy Street, called to complain that for the no parking restrictions there. So it got me to look into the ordinance, and the ordinance reads on the west side of Evergreen, 8 to 9 and 3 to 4. Well, it's not posted that way right now. It just says no parking, standing, or stopping. So the resident said if you would post it the way it is, the ordinance, he'd be fine with it, because that way he could park in the evenings or park at night. So my recommendation, I mean, I don't have any recommendation for the west side other than we'll put those times in there and he would be happy with it. But then it got me to looking on the east side in front of the school. That's not in ordinance anywhere. The signs currently say no parking during school hours. So my recommendation is we put that into code on the east side from Maple Hill to Evergreen Road, no parking during school hours. Now that, I don't know if you want to put a specific time on that, 7 to 4 or what those school hours are. I did talk to the school district. I talked with Ryan Urmansky, and he's in favor of keeping that no parking during school hours. So I think it's just a matter of putting it in the code, not changing anything, just making it how it's marked. So.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I think this makes some sense. We've had some of these issues around other schools, especially where visibility is a problem, pickup and drop off is a problem, people parking cars and leaving them, or, it started out, I think, at least with a couple of the other schools, where we were trying to restrict parking in front of them because you didn't want unknown, unattended vehicles left near a school. I mean, there was concerns for school safety about, what that car could be packed with or there for. But separate from that, when you try to have the pickup and drop-off traffic and the bus traffic, having that restricted a little bit during school hours is super helpful for them. So, I imagine Riverview is the same, especially if they have summer school going on. It's really a year-round issue. So I think during school hours makes sense. I think does the average person know when school hours are? I mean, would you want to make it like 7 to 3?
I guess I'd maybe ask Tara, because she's the one who has to enforce these. If you don't put a time in there, is it?
Does the time matter? I mean,
It's better if you have.
Could you come up to the microphone?
because I mean, if you would go with Monday through Friday, 7 to 3, then in the evening and on the weekend and, all summer, people could park there.
It is better if you put a time in there. I've had this where we have speeding during school hours, and you get this big fight from people. Well, I didn't see any children. I didn't know it was school hours.
Sure.
Like you said, how do I know when it's school hours? So it's best if you put a time, because then it's clear.
Right, and to clarify, it's the school day, not the evening activities and whatever else happens at school. So, I'm all about putting these in code. I think during school hours maybe should be revised to 7 to 3.
Just one, the other side of the street is no parking till 4, so maybe to
Okay.
be consistent, we keep it till 4.
Sure.
I was just going to say 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
because
that'd be
there's-
consistent with the other side of the
That
street.
covers any people coming out late and stuff, or
Yep.
any after-school activities.
Well, and for a while, they were starting school and ending school at weird hours to catch up with snow days and stuff, where they were letting them out at 3:30. So maybe that does make some sense if we went to 4 o'clock, but I'll make a motion that we approve that then with the times being codified as well to define the school day.
And that's just Monday through Friday, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So that would be on the east side, Monday through Friday, 7 to 4? Is
Yes.
that- Okay.
The east side,
And then also codifying the
Troy
front of
Street.
the school, which they wanted, right?
Well, the east side of Troy Street is the front of the school.
Right, and then
The
what,
west side-
Evergreen and Maple Hill, we wanted hours on too, right?
No.
Oh, no,
not Evergreen
okay.
and Maple Hill. We're just talking about Troy Street today?
Okay. Okay, so yes, then, that would be my motion.
to put no parking during school hours, 7 to 4 on East Troy Street, 5 days a week. That is a motion by
It is.
Alder Rasmussen. Is there a second or any further discussion?
I'll second that.
Second
I
by
do have
Alder
a
Denny.
question, though.
Sure.
Okay.
So will this satisfy the complaint from the neighborhood?
It will, just because we will sign it the way it is in code. Because like I said, the west side of the street says no parking 8 AM to 9 AM and 3 to 4.
Okay. And then it also says, I think on that school, most of the parking is on the east side when it's drop off. They line up there heading north. But the west side says no parking standing or stopping. What's the difference? So that would be,
Well,
that would
well-
imply the people dropping off their kids, they don't want them lined up there.
Well, I think that's not the way the ordinance reads, so we'll take off that no parking, standing, or stopping, and we'll just put no parking during those hours as stated in the code.
Okay.
I have a follow-up on that. So the no parking, stopping, or standing, I think I remember when some of them were put up, we also did them at Jefferson. It was because people were pulling up to drop off and pick up kids on the wrong side, and they would pull up on that side, and the kids didn't look. They'd cross mid-block into traffic, or they would park there, and they would take their kids out on the street side, not the sidewalk side, and the principals were concerned about kids getting hit. So I think we still need something there to control that. The schools want them either parking on their side and
Right.
letting the kids out on the sidewalk, or taking them out on the sidewalk and crossing them at the crosswalk. They didn't want kids to just jump out of mom and dad's car and head out. And that was a problem, and I think that's maybe how those signs got made. I know it's how they got put up at Jefferson. On the south side of Randolph, we were having a lot of trouble. And I
Well,
thought
not-
somebody mentioned Riverview too then,
And not only that, just for traffic safety as well, so you
for
can get.
sure. Because they'd come out between cars and everything, the
Yes.
kids. Like it was, they were late, they didn't look. It was scary.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Alder Disselman.
Alan, then, have we checked with the school because, or do they have issue?
I did check with the school, and they want the no parking to stay on the east side and to put it into code. They basically want it to stay like it is.
So bus traffic, I mean, with other schools, the schools wanted a variety of other things. They're happy pretty much with the layout the way it is today, and only this change then?
Correct.
Because sometimes they want to, line up the cars on Evergreen or whatever. I'm not sure. I haven't been in this neighborhood lately, but I was just wondering if this is going to sort of help a little bit of the situation with, especially with drop-off and pickup, because usually that's an issue, becoming a large issue in the city with the schools.
Well, it's really not going to change anything. All it's going to do is put the signs that are not in the code on the east side into the code to make them enforceable.
Right. I was just wondering if there was
It's basically
any,
status quo, and
if
that's
there's any issues with the school, any larger issues with the school traffic.
not according to Ryan. He said
Great, okay.
He said they were happy with this. And I
Okay,
think,
thank you.
yep.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on agenda item 2? So, okay, we have a motion made by Alder Rasmussen and a second by Alder Denny to bring this Troy Street up to city code and post the signs of no parking from 8 a.m., 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. Discussion and possible action, item number 3, discussion and possible action on state municipal agreement for sign retrofit on Business 51 Grand Avenue and Sturgeon Eddy Road. Alan?
Yes, so we applied for these grants several years ago, and we've been waiting for these state municipal agreements. So this would be to replace the signals at Sturgeon, Eddy, and Grand. Because it's a connecting highway, the city still owns the signals though, but the state, it's a funding that they pay 90 and we pay 10. So you can see the cost split down there. The state would be kicking in 502,000 and the city would be kicking in 55,800. Now, this includes the design of the signals too, so it's a good program, and I'd recommend we take the money and get new signals at Sturgeon, Eddy, and Grand.
Thank you, Alan. Any discussion on this?
I'll
Any
move to approve.
motion to approve agenda item 3?
I'll second.
A second by Alder Hinkie. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving agenda item 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. On to agenda item 4, discussion and possible action on municipal agreement for signal retrofit on Business 51 Grand Avenue at County N, Town Line Road.
This is
Alan.
yes, this is the same. We'd bid these two as a package, 90-10 split again, so we'd get those both replaced. We'd start going out for design shortly and hopefully get them built in '26.
I have just one question. Where is the money coming from for these? I mean, granted, it's,
We will have to budget for this in '25 for the 25 and '26. We'll have to budget this 48.
48 and a 55,000.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on item 4?
Yeah.
Yes, Alder
So
Gissman.
with the new, how are they going to tinker with this? Do we have a sense? Or because the apartment house complex coming in, or any sense of what a retrofit would mean?
I think the big thing is, if you look at the way those signals are aligned now, they have the posts in the center of Grand Avenue, and those constantly get hit. So those would get out of there, and we would go with the monotube arms over the top and get rid of those center ones, just a lot less knockdowns for the electrical department, and also safety. So, and then they'll look at timing too. They'll retime them for us and coordinate the signals with timing.
But
there.
basically the same signals, the same green arrows, and
Not necessarily. They'll look at all that. They'll maximize the traffic through that intersection, and they'll also increase the pedestrian. I mean, we'll restripe pedestrian. They'll get push buttons now and countdown timers and audible signals. You know, they'll tell people walk. So they'll be the latest state of the art signals.
so will that be on all 4 crosswalks?
Yes, wherever there's crosswalks, they'll put those push buttons and audible countdown timers.
Good, thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, could we have a motion? Yes, Alder Hinkie.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Alder Hinkie has made a motion to approve item agenda 4. Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Denny. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Item 5, discussion and possible action on 2025 street construction projects and 5-year plan. Alan?
Yes, so every year we bring the 5-year plan, which basically adds 2029. So I included, as you can see from the map, Brown Street from 5th to 13th, Forest from Bellis to 12th, 12th from Forest to Jackson, and Garfield from Marathon Park to 3rd Avenue. That's what I would suggest for 2029. I did a little write-up on the front that tells you what their pavement ratings are, the water utility, the sewer utility, and the storm utility. Basically trying to show you what condition they're in, from a street rating all the way down to tell you how old the water utilities are, how old the utility is, and the sewer utility and the storm utility. So, I mean, they're all 2s, 3s, and 3s and 4s on Garfield. Basically the water's from the 1900s, early 1900s, 1920 to 1940. Same thing with the sewer. So they're all very good candidates. I know there are other candidates, so we could obviously entertain other streets, but this is my recommendation to add to the 5-year plan for 2029.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Any discussion on this? Alder Henke.
Thanks. I see 28th Avenue is on there for not 2 years, but 3 years out. Have we had any designs or thoughts on that? Because it's going up that hill, right?
Yes, so we will, when the new Infrastructure and Facility Committee sits, as early as next month, we will be bringing design alternatives to this committee. We thought about bringing them like this month, but I wanted to wait till the new committee was sitting. So yes, you will, there's going to be some pretty big discussions on that because we have some alternatives with that. So based on maybe what this committee looks at, that, I have a feeling 28th Avenue may shift. I mean, if decisions are made how to move ahead quickly, I think we can get it done in 26. But yes, those decisions will come to this committee either in May or June.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, it's in my district, and I went up it the other day, and it's very, very bad. So as soon as we could, the sooner the better, I think. Thank
I'm
you.
assuming you're thinking 28th Avenue from Stewart Avenue North, correct?
Yeah, to the top of the hill.
Okay.
I have a quick question on that. Those alternatives, does that still include options that we looked at when we officially mapped land that goes out and around that hill to take the hill out of the mix?
Yes.
Okay.
There's several options, so we'll,
Right.
Yeah.
But we had reserved enough land that we could eliminate the hill entirely if, okay. I just wanted to make sure that didn't go away.
nope, that is
So-
one of the options we're looking at.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on agenda item number 5? If not, I would entertain a motion for acceptance of item number 5. Motion
Move to
to
accept.
approve by Alder Denny. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Alder Rasmussen. Thank you. So we have a motion by Alder Denny and a second by Alder Rasmussen to accept agenda item number 5. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that passes unanimously as well. Item number 6, discussion and possible action on steel drum roller and auto grade for paving operations. This must be Eric, okay.
Yeah, I can lead this off, Lou. So, some of the work that Streets has been doing over the last about 4 years is really trying to shift our operations to do more paving in-house. And so, a couple of years ago, we purchased a new paver, replaced the old one. It was a larger paver, so we could do more work. Yeah, we could actually do some street paving and just kind of expand our operations. We've also been increasing our hot mix budget over the last several years through the budgeting process. And just talking with the crews and Dustin and the supervisors, a lot of our seal coating, which used to take up a lot of our time, we have been not fully catching up, right? But we just don't. We'd like to get to paving, and plus we had purchased a piece of equipment to make our own hot mix in small batches for patching potholes and just so longer term fixes, when it comes to potholes versus cold mix. And so really the next step for us is to be able to do full blocks of overlay and paving. And I think with our hot mix increasing, this is equipment that will help allow us to do it, which is a larger roller for increased compaction. And so this is something actually that we are proposing to add to the fleet to help with our operations as we move forward the years to come. And right now, we had a ARPA request, went through finance. Alan put a project together for an additional $1 million. At this point, the finance committee had approved a $500,000. And so we would propose that about $120,000 of that would be to purchase this equipment so we could do some of that hot mix and overlay work in-house. the details and stuff on the equipment, if you have questions, I'll leave to the experts back there, Dustin and Chad, but yeah.
I don't see the item, did that get taken off the agenda for that truck that was on there as well? On the next item, or didn't you have two items on there? You had a roll, at least when I looked at the packet yesterday or the day before, there was,
There's a steel drum roller and an auto grade control for
Okay.
the paving operations.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
My only question is, and I'm sure that we, definitely, the more we could do ourselves in-house, the better off we are, but I guess my concern is how are we gonna pay for it? I mean, because when I looked at the packet, you're looking at probably about $200,000 for this equipment, and I was just wondering how the city has plans to pay for it, so,
I think we're actually looking at about 120,000 for the two pieces of equipment. And, you know, the first option would be to use some of that additional overlay money through ARPA, if the city council approves that. So what the finance committee is recommending, they recommended $500,000 to add to the budget through ARPA for this year.
okay, and with that being said, is there a possibility too, to look into any monies that have been saved from not snowplowing this year?
Yeah, I think that once with the carryover, that could be another option as well, if, you know, if the ARPA isn't. And then I also think that, you know, if this would then come forward to CIP if both of those items were.
Okay.
But I could work with.
Alder
finance.
Rasmussen.
Thank you. That was one of the things that I was going to mention also in finance. I think that finance's intent with approving the $500,000, I think if they had more ARPA, they probably would have given all of the money. But I think their goal also, though, is to maximize the distance that we can get in terms of asphalt overlay done, because things are getting bad fast enough that, you know, you pick streets that don't have lead pipes underneath, so that we can maybe get 15 years out of those, because they're way, way far out for rebuild. But I would like to see us find a source other than ARPA for the equipment part, so that we can maximize the amount of asphalt that we can lay with that $500,000. I'd like to see the entire $500,000 go to asphalt, so we can get more roads done, more blocks done. And if we have either carryover or surplus that we can use for the equipment, I would like to consider that in the finance committee and devote all of the ARPA funding right to the streets, if we can.
I agree. I mean, the streets need it. Lord knows the streets need it.
Yeah. We just touched on it in finance, that the roller may be an option because it's cheaper to in-house the work than to outsource it, because you don't have the contractor's markup, obviously. And so long-term, I mean, short-term and long-term, you could get more out of it if you do the work yourself. But I still would like to see, because then we could even do better yet if we take it in-house, buy the roller with another fund source, and then use the full $500,000 for neighborhood impact.
Well, and then too, you're not dependent on the contractor and then him not showing up at the last minute, you know.
Well, and sometimes they're overbooked and they'll tear something up and leave it sit for 2 weeks and waste
Right,
time. So,
exactly.
you know, we have a little more control if our crew does the work too, so that's helpful, especially if it's side street stuff,
Okay.
so. Do you need a motion, I guess, to,
I guess for, yeah, I would like one just to show that the committee is in favor of adding this equipment. The funding source, then we can have a further discussion
Yeah,
on where that would be.
then under those circumstances, I'll move that we approve the acquisition of the equipment, but that we send a recommendation to finance to find an alternate fund source other than ARPA to pay for it with, so that the ARPA can be maximized for the actual pavements.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'd second that, if that was.
Alder Deeney would second that. All those in favor of accepting agenda item 6, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that motion passes unanimously. Discussion and number 7, discussion and possible action on asphalt overlay program and future budgets. I just have, I was briefly looking at this map that we got from Alan here, and I think that as recently as I became an Uber driver around town, there are so many side streets and one-block streets where that just need to be done. And when I look and I see this on Pinecrest Avenue here, or not Pinecrest Avenue, Pine Ridge Boulevard, that's that street that goes around the hospital. That would be the last thing I think I would want to spend money on overlay, at least at this year. And that's just my thoughts. I'm opening it up for discussion.
I guess I can add some context to this a little bit, Lou. So Lou had asked this item to be on it, so the map that's in your packet, the 2024 asphalt paving project A, that's what's going to be repaved this year with the $650,000, or the $600,000, excuse me, that this council approved. So if you look at that, you got 48th, 32nd, West Wausau, 6th, 13th, 8th, 6th, and 10th. Now, we were talking about the roller before and such. So with the equipment that DPW does have now, under this asphalt project, we are just milling West Wausau Avenue, 6th Avenue, and 10th Street, and DPW is going to pave those with their new paver. So we're kind of teaming up there. We're using some of the asphalt overlay money to mill it, and then so it made our budget go a little further. But they don't have a milling machine, so we took our some of our money and milled it, and then they can overlay. So it got us more streets overlaid this year. So I think that's one of the benefits that you guys approved the roller with. That'll help their efficiency on overlaying these streets, and they'll allow them to compact them better. So the second sheet I gave you, just handed it out today. It says asphalt paving project B. Well, it's not a project yet. I mean, this is what I put together for ARPA. So this asphalt paving B, these are the streets that engineering came up with to mill and overlay to utilize $1 million. Now, the ARPA request was approved at finance for $500,000. That still has to go to the full council. But so these lists, or this streets here, would have to be trimmed from, basically half, or I shouldn't say half. Like you did mention, Pine Ridge Boulevard is an expensive one because it's 4 or 5 lanes wide. I mean, so if you take that street off, you wouldn't have to trim this number of streets in half, just because that one's. And so next committee meeting, I can bring all these streets back with budgets. We do have budget numbers for these, how much each street's going to cost, and you can, a la carte, you can pick and choose. I mean, I'll have a recommendation for you,
Okay.
but they're all deserving, right? So I don't necessarily know how I'm going to trim this down. So it'll be kind of up to the new CISM committee, I guess, or infrastructure and facilities committee, how they want to, which streets they want to pick. I kind of spread them out throughout the whole city, east side, west side, and these, these are streets that either do not have lead services or really no services at all, or they already have copper services. So we're not, the lead service lateral line replacement program isn't going to be digging these streets up as soon as we put the asphalt down. So that's another thing to take care of. I mean, I'm sure you guys are thinking that there may be streets worse than this, or maybe streets deserving, but a lot of the streets that have the lead underneath them, we're just simply not going to overlay them until the lead services are replaced.
Okay, I understand, but I mean, I guess if you're going to come back with a plan for the next committee, I just Pine Ridge Boulevard would be one of the last ones, because there's so many other sides, one block streets and stuff. I think you could look into that really desperately need overlay. And Pine Ridge Boulevard would be my last pick. Okay. But anyway, open up for discussion. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I agree on Pine Ridge. I think that if we had to pare down the list, that's where I'd start from. Just because it's largely a commercial sector, and we're really looking with ARPA dollars for neighborhood impact to really turn things around for neighborhoods and create projects that residents really want and can appreciate. I think that we could find other ways to work Pine Ridge into our future budgets if it's necessary, but I feel like just with the size of that, it would certainly help get the list down. The other one, I guess, that I would have a question on is 12th Avenue from Randolph to Merrill. That is the street that runs in front of that new Urban West building. I travel that a lot, and I feel like in that particular area, there's streets that are worse. 4th Avenue from Randolph to Merrill is way, way worse. I don't know what there is for service in there, but, if you're looking at the 11, 12, and 1300 block of North 4th Avenue, it's craters. And I just don't detect that. Like when I'm driving up 12th, yeah, it needs some patchwork, but there's other streets there that are traveled on a daily basis that are also in proximity to that school that are worse. You know, much like we traded off a piece of 3rd Avenue for Cherry Street, this is kind of that same thing. 12th is, there's stuff that's worse than 12th if we want something in the northwest. So I would say just compare them, like take a look at 4th from Blue Willow to Jefferson Elementary. Follow it up. There's an area on the east side where they did 2 large patches that are holding really well. The rest of the street is terrible. The plow is even having trouble plowing, and they're actually putting a good portion of the street on the boulevard for people to hit with their snow blowers. That same thing's happening on Crescent, but 4th is so bad. And I don't see that on 12th, even though Urban West is done. The other thing is if there's a future plan for a second building there, you know, they could ruin a new street, putting that building in there. And we don't know what the timeline would ever be on that, but I think we should be sensitive to what that's going to be. Because we figured if they ever put that in, someday we would need signals at 12th and Randolph. So I would wait on 12th if we could. Just living there, I feel like there's other stuff that needs it first. So, but if we get some numbers next month, it would be helpful to.
Sure, and if you have other streets that you think in your neighborhood that you want us to take a look at, definitely shoot me an email or call me,
Yeah.
and we can put numbers together for those streets and look if, you know, what the underlying utilities are like.
I feel like 4th and 12th are close in length. I don't know what 16th looks like, but I know 12th is better than 4th. So just an idea.
Alder Gisselman.
Well, in conjunction with this, one of the overlying issues up at the northeast side would be the lead service line area. You know, so I think before I would suggest streets that need work, if there would be a map, or if, you know, I don't know, do we have that already? We may have that already. I don't know if I have that already, but I would, because you're right, I'm not going to come to Allen and say, you know, whatever street, but if that's a lead service line that might be dealt with within the next 5 years, you know, that sort of comes off my list, and I can take that to the neighborhood and say, you know, you have to wait, lead service lines, and that gives me a reason to come back to a neighborhood and say, we're not doing this street because of the lead service line projects coming down the line. So I think that would help me to go back to the neighborhood and say, you know, what streets are going to be lead service lines, and what streets are going to be opting for an asphalt overlay sometime in the future. I don't know if that's possible or not.
It is.
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, it is. I don't know how on a large scale or how well you'd be able. So what I obviously have the advantage of the GIS. You know, Dan does a great job putting all the GIS together. So I overlay all the street ratings are on there. So I like turn on all the streets that are rated 2, 3, and 4, and then I turn on the water, and I can see where they overlap, where the lead service laterals overlap the bad streets, and that's kind of how so I have the advantage of that. I'll have to see, Gary, how I can put that on. It might have to be several neighborhoods, or maybe I can do it by district, or.
Or maybe I can just come, look over your shoulder sometime.
Right.
And do that in my neighborhood.
We could do that.
Not that you have to make a big,
So that's how these were all
not
arrived
that you have
at.
to make a big deal of it, but I think as I go back to the neighborhood, just so that I have that, that information for the neighborhood. Thank you.
I'm assuming you don't need a motion on this or anything, you just have.
No, and I think, Lou, that, you know, it is time to start talking about budgets too, and I think one of the things is that the asphalt budget was increased in the general budget to $600,000 last year, and I hope that this committee would push for that again through the budget cycle to keep that up there or add more. I don't know if that's in anybody's appetite right now, but I would hope we would keep it up at 600 at a minimum.
How much, if we acquire this equipment, you know, how much will that save us from hiring somebody else to, you know, to do the rollering and stuff? Would that, I guess my question would be, is how much further would our paving dollar go? Yeah.
Well, it's going to depend how much money you put in DPW's asphalt budget, because every road that we mill, they have to pave. So it's kind of a, we worked with them to see how much asphalt they had in their budget, and that was basically the amount that we milled this year for them, minus some patching and stuff. But, so I guess that, if you look at, they're just increasing efficiency too with that big roll into getting better density, so they're getting a better quality product.
Sure.
So there is cost savings. Obviously, they buy the asphalt, and they don't have to. We're not paying the markup for the private companies to lay it. But I don't think they can do all of them. But I think it's a help to have that tool in our toolbox to get them to do some. So it's hard to answer that question, Lou, on
Okay.
how much we would exactly say.
All
I
right.
guess.
Okay, well, that's, thank you. So then with that, we'll move on.
Question, Lou.
Oh,
I have one
yeah, I'm
too.
sorry, Doug. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Alderman Denny.
Thank you. Lou, I think when we discussed this last time, when we went from 300 to, or 350 to 600, wasn't there a historical number there that we have averaged, or has it been up and down depending on the?
There were years we were over $1 million, some years, and we took TID money, and so I think that's one thing I'm going to be working with Mary Ann too, to ask if there's any TID money in some of these districts to help boost that, because I know we're using $300,000 worth of TID money for concrete pavement repair, which these guys are doing right out here, right outside of our office as we speak. So maybe there's some TID money we could use for asphalt too, but kind of I think to balance budgets in the past, asphalt overlay was maybe an easy pickings, because you're not cutting a street, or you're not, so it has gotten dwindled down, but I think 600 is a good place to be, or above that. I don't want to be below that, but, so we have historically been above that, and like the last several years, it's gotten cut.
Okay.
I have just a question.
Yes, Alder Rasmussen.
I think that 600 is a good place to be. I don't think we want to fall below that again. It took us a lot of teeth gnashing to get to 600. I'd like to see us be a little higher someday, but I think we'd have to find savings in other areas. If we start to see more in transportation aids and shared revenues, that is certainly possible, right? So we'll need help from some of our partners down south. But that said, do we know, just in general terms, like to simplify the question of taking something in-house versus contracting it out, do we know roughly what that markup factor is? Is it like 10%? Is it, there's some profit margin for the contractor in there too that we
Right.
wouldn't have. Do we know roughly?
Well, I can bring back what it cost us per ton when we buy it, or excuse me, when they buy it, or as compared to when a contractor has been charging us on our projects.
Because at one
Sorry.
point, we thought, we had like a arbitrary number where, and this before inflation, we were figuring that it would, contract it out was costing you like $85,000 a block or something, right? So, if we kind of knew what it costs us to do a block ourselves versus what it costs to do a block for them, we could kind of see then, like if we get one more street in because we did it ourselves, I think, even if it's baby steps, that helps neighborhoods.
Yep, I agree.
So I do think that, down at Streets, they do, at least with the software and everything that they have, a decent job of trying to, where the crews are and job costing and things like that. So it's some things we could try to put some numbers to and try to
Right.
figure out what that comparison would be.
That would be great,
on a
because I think
regular
that's a
street.
question we get at neighborhood groups, where I think people have, they misunderstand how expensive it is to do this, because they're like, oh, just fix our streets. Well, they don't realize that we have this $80 million backlog first, but that what it costs to just get a block or two is eye-popping for people. So, and I've gone to, had these conversations in neighborhood groups where I'm like, you don't understand, this little piece of street that took all summer is $250,000. So, I think that helps them understand too, like where we're at. And, when they see that impact, they know that it wasn't cheap. So I think
Yeah.
those numbers would be good for us to have.
Okay.
Any further discussion on agenda item 7? And then we'll move on to agenda item 8. Highway update on connecting highway rescission and designation for rerouting State Highway 52 and Business Highway 51 in the city of Wausau. Alan.
Yes, so we just wanted to bring this back to you, that this is finalized. The DOT has signed it and the mayor has signed it. So it's official now, the reroutes of 52 and 51 through the city is completed. The DOT will be doing all that signing this summer. They bid that work out, so the city doesn't have any financial responsibility there. They will be marking all the new routes out on the highway and through the city. So the maps are included where the old routes were and where the new routes are, but it's been completed.
Thank you, Alan. Any discussion? Alder Gisselman.
Question then, with Business 52 Parkway, is the city anticipating, because that's no longer 52, Business 52, right? So do we have to change that, that parkway, what we can call it a parkway, I guess?
We can leave it 52 Parkway or change it. I guess we don't have to. It's
Well,
it's no
just-
longer 52.
It's just sort of odd because it's no longer part, we named it 52 Parkway because it was part of Business 52, but now it's not. So should we call it something more appropriate? Just a thought.
Alder Henke. Oh,
So I see Bridge Street is now going to be a state highway, and Stewart used to be the state highway. Because of that, is that why the speed limit differences are different on those roads? Is Bridge Street going to become a 35? Or is that not going to change?
They haven't proposed any, and we haven't, any change, so no, I don't anticipate speed limits changing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
any further discussion on item 8? No, you don't need any action on this, so before I ask for an adjournment, I would just like to thank everybody for serving on this committee the past 2 years and serving the city, and I want to thank the committee for having myself as a chair. It's been an honor to serve this committee, and with that, I'll ask for an adjournment. Motion made by Alder Denny for adjournment, second by Alder Henke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That motion passes unanimously, and I always wanted to do that. Thank you, everybody.
Congrats, Lou.